بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Good evening in Malaysia and Southeast Asia. Good afternoon in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. Thank you very much for being here and attending this session today. So my presentation mainly will focus on the Islamic finance for halal industry. So within the theme of the conference, which is about the halal industry, my focus here actually about the funding and investing in this crucial industry, the halal industry. Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Kinan Salim, the head of Islamic Digital Economy at INCEIF University. INCEIF is a university under the Central Bank of Malaysia, which is dedicated for Islamic finance. We have done a lot of research regarding the Islamic finance, Islamic Fintech, and Islamic digital economy. And one of the key areas that we focus on how to link the Islamic finance and Islamic Fintech to halal industry. So the agenda for today's presentation, I will cover 4 or 5 points. The status of the halal industry, the status of the Islamic finance, the role of halal finance or Islamic finance in halal production, the role of halal finance in halal investment, and finally, I will touch a little bit on the role of Islamic fintech and the potential of Islamic fintech in investing and developing the halal industry. So let's just briefly go through the status of halal industry, even though I believe most of the attendees have be aware of about the halal industry, since the theme of the conference halal. But let's just touch a little bit on the status of halal industry. So this is the statistics from the latest report of Global Islamic Economy. The trend and the growth of halal industry actually is huge, and the opportunity is just unbelievable. If you look at the consumer opportunity in halal industry, how much Muslim consumers or how much consumers have been spending on ethical related consumption, more than $2.2 trillion. That's in 2018 alone. That shows growth of 5.2%. And this is diversified across more than 1.8 billion Muslims. And of course, the halal industry also cater for non-Muslims as well. And this is across 6 real economic sectors. Now, this is the case, and it's projected to be higher growth, 6.2, higher growth until yearly growth until 2024, with expected size of $3.2 trillion. Now, the good thing here is not just that steady growth in the halal industry, but also the diversification across different real economic sector. Of course, the main part in that coming at the top, the halal food, which cater for more than $1.3 trillion, followed by the modest fashion, media recreation, Muslim-friendly travel, halal tourism, halal pharmaceutical, and halal cosmetics. Of course, when we talk about halal pharmaceutical and cosmetics, this is the size is comparatively small, but it's also growing speedily. But the main part again is the halal food of part of it. Now, this is just to show the opportunity of the halal industry. Now, how this opportunity come? What are the key drivers of the growth of the halal industry? Of course, one is the Muslim population, and there is a high growth and affluence among Muslim population. We talk about increasing adherence to ethical values. So people more and more, they're asking for halal food. They are asking for halal cosmetics, for example. And if you want to think about it, last time people, they really were concerned when things come to the food, to the meat. But when other things like cosmetics, for example, tourism. People were not aware about it. Like, is there halal tourism, halal cosmetics? But this awareness is increasing, and the adherence and trying to find kind of standard or ethical values to adhere to also, this is increasing. Of course, one of the key drivers is the continued engagement by the global multinationals and investors. Um, it's a very important part that the growing number of national strategies which is dedicated to halal products and related opportunities. So you see different countries in Malaysia, UAE, Indonesia, even non-Muslim countries, they are trying to come up with a national strategy to focus on the halal. Of course, when we talk about national strategies, that it's cover it like kind of map roadmap that could put the institutions, the enablers, the key players, the market, trying to cater and support all of the components of ecosystem for halal industry, halal trade and halal industry. So countries start to look at it as a strategic pillar for developing the economy of the countries. And while they are doing so, that push different key players in the market to go and participate within this halal industry. Of course, plus the demand from the non-Muslim customers as well for the halal industry, where in many countries halal industry labeled somehow to be, for example, when we talk about halal food, it give that feeling that okay, halal food means like it's clean food, it is sustainable food, so it has some positive as well impact for the non-Muslim customers. Now, we talk about halal industry, and I just took a brief, as I said, because I know that most of the audience they are aware about it. I want to focus more on the status of the Islamic finance. So Islamic finance also is an industry that has been growing rapidly through the last decade. Right now, we have more than 2.5 trillions of Islamic finance assets around the world. Those assets have been, of course, there's the growth is there. Yes, in the beginning, the growth had been two digits, like for the few years, but then recently it has decreased to one digit, 3.5, but still the growth is there and expected to continue more than to 5 or 6% yearly, which expected to be in 2024 more than $3.4 trillion. Where are those Islamic finance assets? How it's distributed? The biggest chunk actually it is on the Islamic financial institutions, specifically the Islamic banks. So Islamic banks still dominate the Islamic finance market. However, there are other institutions, there are other tools for other financial Islamic finance assets, such as the sukuk. Sukuk also is growing more and more. So right now we have more than 400 billion sukuk, outstanding sukuk. And of course, sukuk is expected to grow higher and higher because during and after the COVID, most of the countries, including the OIC countries, they need to finance the deficit that's happening in their budget. They need to finance the balance. They need to finance the packages that they give for the MSMEs and for the B40 and for the needy people to stimulate the economy. So they need to finance this, and one way to finance this actually, or the most way to finance this, through bonds and sukuk. So this is why you see many of the countries right now, Malaysia, Indonesia, the GCC countries, all they have been very active in issuing sukuk this year. Islamic funds, which is more than 105 million. So um, those Islamic finance assets, you see, it's spread across Islamic banks, across the capital market as well. So those kind of assets actually they provide long-term financing opportunities, short-term, medium-term financing opportunities, Islamic financing opportunities and facilities that can be used actively by the halal industry to raise fund and invest in the halal industry. Now, when you talk about the role of halal finance in halal production, in halal industry, here we focus on two aspects actually. The first aspect, this is when we talk about the halal production and operation on one hand, and on the other hand, we talk about the role of Islamic finance in the investment of the halal industry. Now, the first part, which is very important, yes, we focus, or the people focus, for example, when we talk about halal industry, let's take an example, food and meat, for example. So when they think about halal meat, they think about where we got this, is the slaughtering is Sharia compliant, is have been slaughtering in the beginning or not, and they follow all the standard and the characteristic which is directly related to that food, to that halal food. However, one of the important question here, like how this halal product have been financed, right? If we talk about again about meat, for example, so how the production has been done, what is the source of financing for this production? Does the owner get loan from the bank, a conventional loan with the interest rate from the bank to buy the cows, for example, or the sheep, and then slaughtering and then go through the process? Or where the fund coming from? What is the source of income for the producers? Um, is there any involvement in riba or non-Sharia compliant activities when it regarding the financing of the halal production? So this is a very important, because when we talk about halal industry, we talk about end-to-end Sharia compliant solutions. So we are not just talking about the halal, the meat itself, for example, or the food itself, but we talk about end-to-end Sharia compliant solution. And end-to-end, it includes the financing of this solution. And this is where actually there's growing awareness on the need of utilizing Sharia compliant financial services by the supplier of the halal products and services. Now, remember that the customers, the clients for the halal food, in the beginning, they opt for halal food because they wanted to be Sharia compliant. And this is where end-to-end solution of Sharia compliant is very important. And this is where the producers more and more interested to have to include Islamic finance solutions when they go for the production. This end-to-end Sharia compliance, it assure that the whole process of the halal production is Sharia compliant. The whole process of the certification is Sharia compliant. So this is the importance of infusing Islamic finance within the halal production, within the financing function of the producers of the halal production. So this is one part. This is one aspect of the story. Now, the other aspect of the story is what is the role of halal finance in halal in halal industry investment. So, as we mentioned previously, this industry of the halal is growing steadily, and that growth indeed needs a lot of financing. Right? This growth is an opportunity. This growth is an opportunity. There's an opportunity to growth, but for this opportunity, you need the fund, right? And this is where actually the halal finance is in to give this fund. As you mentioned, the Islamic finance asset is more than 2 trillion, and it is diversified. So you have Islamic banks, you have sukuk, for example, you have other alternative finance platform, for example, which all provide Sharia compliant financing solutions. So if the halal producer looking for long-term, for example, financing. You have, for example, like such an instrument such as sukuk, for example, which provide long-term financing. If, for example, the halal producer need the producer or the supply chain of the halal need financing, need short-term or medium-term Islamic finance, or also the Islamic finance institutions and instruments provide a suitable tool to match these needs, these financing needs of the producers or of the entities in the supply chain of the halal supply chain. Now, um, one one aspect that I want to go focus on it, uh, as I mentioned before, that one of the important aspect or categories or items of the halal industry is the food industry. And in the food industry, along the supply chain of the food industry, there's a lot of SMEs, right? So SMEs is highly involved actually in the halal industry. However, SMEs, they have a lot of challenges in general, and financing actually is being one of the major obstacles for which is like facing those SMEs operating in the halal industry. SMEs, of course, we talk about the social and medium enterprise, and actually we talk about MSMEs, the micro, small, and medium enterprise. So there are a lot of issues and challenges facing them, and especially during the COVID-19, it was really a very and still is a very challenging time for them. And financing, particularly, have been a very important issue that have been facing them in general, and in particular also to obtain Sharia compliant financing. That's also more becoming more difficult. Here, I want to focus on the new development of Islamic finance, which is the Islamic Fintech. So, Islamic Fintech, this is where it includes the financing with the technology, and the financing actually happening through platform, through peer-to-peer platform and crowdfunding platform. Of course, there are a lot of other aspects for fintech, but here I'm focusing on those digital platform because they are directly involved and related to provide halal SMEs. So this is actually where now the opportunities to get Islamic finance to support halal SMEs is very, very, very big. Now, you look at OIC countries and Muslim countries, there's a growth of Islamic fintech. There is a growth of Islamic digital platform that provide financing. In Malaysia, we have more than 10 crowdfunding and P2P, for example. Other countries also, they have a lot of those kind of platform. Now, of course, those kind of platform also provide diversified or provide different instruments and solutions for the halal SMEs. So, for example, P2P platform, they provide kind of debt financing. Crowdfunding in general, they provide more kind of equity financing. And here, the beauty of this platform actually that it caters for different risk profile comparing to the banks. So banks in general, they are very, I would say, they are very strict when they're giving the finance. They are very conservative when they're giving the finance. They looking for the collateral. They try to go for low risk profile companies because they want to protect the depositors. So, but then when you talk about SMEs by default they are more higher risk. They have this kind of higher risk. They may not have the collateral. So banks in general, and that's including Islamic banks, in general, you look at their portfolio, their financing portfolio, a very little portion go for SMEs. Very, very little portion go for SMEs because of that risk profile of the SMEs. Now, what is this digital platform actually doing? The digital platform, it directly link the investors to the SMEs, to the entrepreneurs. So you don't have the financial intermediary of the bank there, right? And the investors from the beginning, they know that the risk of the entrepreneurs or the SMEs is a little bit higher than like putting a deposit in the bank. So they already prepare to go for that risk profile, which is a little bit or maybe more than a little bit higher than the risk profile of the project or investing in banks, for example, right? So this gives the opportunity for the SMEs, and including, of course, you are focusing on the halal SMEs. This give the opportunity for halal SMEs to raise funds through those digital platforms. Digital platforms, again, P2P and crowdfunding, the last few years have been a successful story. There are a lot of good successful stories that have been raised fund and benefit from them. And here we want to focus more on the Islamic crowdfunding and P2P because it's the platform still new and recent platform. They starting to do so. So here linking those Islamic crowdfunding and P2P to halal SMEs, this is a very big opportunity actually for growth. It's just matching. You have the halal SMEs that they need the financing, they need the fund, they need the Sharia compliant fund, and you have the platform that provide them with this fund, which is with the Sharia compliant fund, the P2P and the crowdfunding platform. So it's just a match between those P2P and crowdfunding. One of the concept that we have been working on recently, and I believe that this also can be a very big opportunity for halal SMEs and for not just for the halal SMEs, for halal industry in general, which is the idea of reviving Waqf land and link it to the social impact investment and linking to the halal industry. So, what we are talking about here, and in OIC countries in Islamic worlds, there are a lot of Waqf land, and Waqf, of course, this is those lands that have been given for endowment, okay, where the beneficiary of the land can be school, can be orphans, can be people need help, for example, or healthcare or whatever. And these kind of endowments, it have been there for hundreds of years. It has been practiced in the Islamic communities for hundreds and thousands of years. Now, through the years, along the way, that many of these land actually become idle land, become non-utilized land or underutilized land. So we have, and this is like a problem, that well-known problem, that there are a lot of this waqf land, and a lot of this waqf land actually they are agriculture land. So the land which is the base for the halal food, right? So most of them become agricultural land, but however, a lot of these lands are not utilized or underutilized. Now, the benefit of this land, so meaning that when when this land is rented for, or the crops of this land or the output of this land, actually the benefit of it part of it will go for the beneficiary. Again, this is the orphans, this is the healthcare, the education. So this is by default, this creates a social impact. This waqf land by default is designed to create social impact. Now, what is the thing here? Social impact investment actually is also one of the trend now in globally, where people not just when they invest their money, not just looking for the financial return of the money, they also look at the social impact of their investment. However, the thing is, to find a social impact instrument is still a kind of difficulties for the investors. So here what we have people who want to invest, but when they want to invest, they want to see social impact of their investment. And at the same time, we have waqf land, which is by nature, it is created and designed to create social impact. So we need to connect this waqf land. And again, here we are talking about waqf agricultural land, which is part of the halal supply chain. Okay, we need to link this halal supply chain to the social impact investment. Okay, and along the social impact investment, there is another movement which is the social impact consumption as well. So when you consume, when you buy the food, for example, if part of your purchase go to help someone, that is giving you more utility in kind of social return that you feel that here. So here what we are trying to link all these small pieces of the puzzle. You have the idle waqf land, which is a social impact asset by itself. You have the social impact investors that want to invest. You have the halal supply chain where the waqf land is there in the beginning of this halal supply chain, and at the end of the halal supply chain, you have some of the clients or part of the clients, they're not just looking for halal, they're also looking for creating value when they are consuming. Not just the halal, but also creating social value. So all this aspect, you need a platform to link them. And this is where the Islamic finance platform, the Islamic crowdfunding platform actually can play a very crucial role in linking all those different aspects, like Waqf land, the social impact investment, the crowdfunding, and at the same time, the halal chain and the halal aware customers. So this is where we see actually the future or the trend of Islamic finance, Islamic fintech going to the halal industry. So now, first, we are going beyond the traditional financial institution, traditional Islamic finance institutions. So we are not just talking about the banks or the sukuk market, for example. We are talking about the new innovation in the halal, in the Islamic finance and the Islamic fintech. We are talking about P2P and the crowdfunding platform. Those platforms attract investors, not just like the institutional investors, for example, or the big investors. It actually designed to attract the retail investors. It designed to attract the medium and the middle class investors, actually the investors from the middle class. So here, what we are linking the investors from the middle class. We are linking them to the halal supply chain from the beginning. We are linking this to the social impact finance. So linking different parts of the puzzles in one platform. So this is where we believe the trend in the next few years. While the growth of the alternative Islamic finance, like the crowdfunding, like the digital platform, this is where it's rapidly growth in the number and in the size, and this is actually where the opportunity is there. Now, what kind of challenging of this product of proposals? First, um, uh, Islamic digital platform, it's still in the beginning. So, and as anything in the beginning, there's still a lot of people, lack of awareness, for example. So many people, they don't know about it. Many people, they didn't start using it, right? So, for example, if you say that, do you want to put your money in the bank, in the Islamic bank? So people, they are already familiar with the Islamic banks, right? You already have accounts there or whatever. But do you want to invest in crowdfunding? A lot of people, this is the first time maybe they heard about crowdfunding. So the concept is still new, and many people, they are not aware about it or not part of that circle yet. The other challenge here as well, when you talk about using land as source for the halal chain or part of the halal chain. Of course, it has been there for a long time. Waqf land is part of the halal chain, but in general, Waqf land, they follow or they are under different authorities in general. So here, when you talk about the regulation of these things, we talk about different regulators. We talk about Waqf authorities, we talk about halal standard authorities, we talk about financial authorities, right? Like the Security Commission, for example, the BUSA. Uh, and so, like, getting a framework that kata or that link all those different aspects, it's somehow not an easy task. And of course, it can be different from country to country, but in general, in the countries where there is strategic directions toward Islamic finance, halal economy, digital finance, this is where going with those kind of products and proposals are much easier than countries where somehow those sectors is scattered and there's no, I would say, there's no roadmap when you talk about the overall strategic direction. There's no roadmap or strategic direction for the country to go to that direction of Islamic social finance, halal finance, and halal industry. So with that, I my presentation in here. Hope it is beneficial for all the attendees. And here I also want to thank the organizers for organizing this very timely conference. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.